Today's CBS This Morning podcast is sponsored by Freshpet. Real pet food, fresh from the fridge.
Welcome to the CBS This Morning podcast. I'm Nicole Killian, CBS News congressional correspondent. This summer, Thomas Manger was sworn in as the new chief of the U.S. Capitol Police. His selection comes as the department continues to cope with the aftermath of the January 6th attack. The 42-year police veteran previously served as a local police chief in the Washington suburbs. I sat down with Chief Manger to discuss the lessons learned from the Capitol riot, his biggest challenges going forward, and what compelled him to come out of retirement. Here is our conversation.
So, Chief, thank you so much for joining us. I just really want to start off with, why do you want this job?
You know, that's actually a very good question, because if you would have asked me on January 5th, you know, you're thinking about getting back into police work, I'd have said no. I'm enjoying retirement. I'm enjoying doing the consulting work and you know, working with police departments around the country. I was really enjoying that. But the events of January 6th, it was the first time since I had retired that I wished that I was not retired. And as I watched what was going on, I thought to myself, you know, I've been a police chief in the D.C. area for over 20 years, and we have handled protests like this all over the city, all over the region. And, you know, D.C. worked with Fairfax and Montgomery and Prince George's and Arlington and Alexandria, and we always had this regional effort to handle some of these big events. And we had the resources and the staffing that we needed to maintain control. And when I watched what was going on, I thought, well, you know, I think that my experience, you know, in this region, my familiarity with the folks that are running police departments in this region, that I could help. And ultimately, the folks that were recruiting, looking for someone for this job, reached out to me and said, you know, we think your experience would be beneficial. And it wasn't difficult to persuade me. So I was not looking for any police chief job. This job, I thought that I could really benefit the department, and I wanted to help just based on the amazing. I'm running on in this answer, but I know this police department. I've known this police department, been familiar with this police department for many, many years. This is a great police department. The men and women of this department are just as good as anywhere in the nation. And I know that there's a lot of the public that is basically the only thing they ever paid attention to was January 6th. And that's how they define this department. And that is not an accurate way to define this department. It's a good department, but certainly January 6th brought out some issues that needed to be worked on. And you could say this about any police department, but for the Capitol Police, there now are dozens of recommendations about what should be done. And I think that with my experience and with my familiarity with the D.C. region, that I can provide some assistance to get this department where it needs to be.
Where were you on January 6th, and what did you make of the images that we all witnessed that day?
Well, I was at home, and I was actually doing work. I mean, I was sitting at my desk doing work, and I kept hearing about this, and I guess it was about 1 o'clock or so. I turned the TV on, and that was it. I was just riveted to the TV, watching what was going on. I remember being angry. I remember being just really emotionally upset with what I was seeing. I mean, I was looking at cops being assaulted and you know, being hurt, and I mean, probably like thousands of cops around the nation. What I wanted to do was get in my car and go down there and help them. I mean, that's just, I had this just visceral reaction. So, but I was riveted to the TV, and it was for me, it was a very emotional experience.
If you were in charge on the 6th, what would you have done differently?
So, I mean, there's been a lot of studies and a lot of reports about what intelligence folks had about what equipment the officers needed, the fact that they needed more officers. There's a lot of things that you can point to that may have made a difference on the 6th. But what I'm really focused on is, okay, so what do we do about that now? And because this is my first day, and so we've already, and the good news is that Chief Pittman, who was the acting chief for the last 6 months, she didn't just wait around, for whoever the next chief was. She really moved forward with many of the recommendations, and so I'm pleased to say that even today we are much better prepared, and would be much better prepared for something like that should it occur again. And as time goes on, we're going to get the training and the equipment and the staffing and all of the things that we need to ensure that we can maintain safety and security of this complex.
I know you don't necessarily want to be a Monday morning quarterback, but what do you see as the biggest failures that day from a law enforcement standpoint?
Well, I can just refer back to the reports that were written. I mean, the officers that didn't have the equipment that they needed. There was intelligence that people made decisions on, and I get that. Look, I've been a cop for 42 years, and I realize that when you get information, you have to weigh it. Is this credible? Is it likely? Is this something that we should react to? Is it something that we should just be aware of? But I think that you can look at the issues of the intelligence and the equipment and the training and the staffing, and it's easy to say, oh well, if we'd had done this or if we'd have had that, would have made a difference. Well, we know now that it will make a difference. It would make a difference. So we're working to ensure that those things are in place.
What do you see as your biggest priority right now?
Look, this police department has a unique mission. It is, we are here to protect the members of Congress. We're here to protect the U.S. Capitol, to make a safe and secure environment for the people who visit here, who work here, and we're here to protect the legislative process. So those will always be the top priorities. But at the same time, fulfilling these recommendations, reviewing and making sure we implement the recommendations that have been, some of them are big, some of them are small, some of them are going to require funding, and we're going to have to work toward that. But the other issue that is I think very important, and certainly is very important to me, is restoring the confidence, that for the folks that work here, for the folks that we interact with, that they have confidence that the police department is able to protect them and provide a secure environment here. We are, and these men and women are great professionals, but I know that that for a lot of folks, they lost confidence on January 6th. So we've got to rebuild that, and we can do that. And then we also, I think that it's important to take care of the police officers here. They have a tough job, and the job is not getting any easier. In fact, it is increasingly difficult, this job is, especially here. And so to ensure that we give the officers the training that they need, give them the resources, build resiliency, for these folks. I mean, this is a tough job, and we should have programs in place that help these cops, day to day, continue to work as hard as they work, but help build resiliency and give them the opportunity to, deal with some of the pressures of this work, and we're gonna be able to do that as well.
More specifically, how do you fix morale?
That's a very good question, and there's some principles that I think work. Certainly contribute to improving morale. And the first thing is, I believe, as a leader, you got to be there. And what I mean by that is, your cops need to see you. They need to know that you care about them. They need to know that you're working to improve their ability to do the job. They have the ability to do the job. They're good at that. But the department needs to facilitate that, needs to give them the resources they need to do that job. So when you can make sure that you've got your cops properly trained and you've got enough staff so that people aren't forced to work overtime all the time, when you've got opportunities for people to grow, during their career, I think that goes a long way for people to say, no, this is a good place to work. And so we've got to make sure that the cops know that this department cares about them.
And how do you address recruitment?
So that this is the same an issue that every police chief around the country is dealing with, because the national narrative on policing obviously is not very conducive to helping recruiting. You've got a lot of folks that say, oh, I would never want to be a police officer, that maybe at one time would have considered it. So and the more important thing is when you hire police officers, you got to make sure you're hiring the right person. I mean, you got to make sure that that person has the qualities and the integrity and all of those traits that would make a good police officer. And it's not just not everybody would make a good cop. So you've got to make sure you're hiring the right people. You got to invest in their training. You got to hold them accountable throughout their career to do their job the way it's supposed to be done. But so recruitment, we've come so far in terms of recruiting. I look at some of the recruitment videos that were around 20, 30 years ago, and it's like, well, who are you trying to get? It's like, you want people that like shooting guns and, you want somebody with a spirit for public service. You want someone who has compassion. You want someone who, certainly first and foremost has integrity. So go after folks with those kind of traits, not, people that are, always looking for action and, that's good. I mean, it's part of the job, but you want to have somebody that has the right personality and the right character traits to make a good cop in the first place.
Getting back to January 6th, it obviously showed the threat that domestic extremists pose to the U.S. Capitol and lawmakers. So how do you plan to combat these extremists, and do you expect more attacks from them in the future?
Well, there's certainly been more threats over the past year or two. We've seen those against members, and so we're dealing with that. We clearly have to deal with threats to the physical security of this complex. So we're doing it with looking at what we can do to make this. There are physical things that you can do to make a site more secure. Obviously, just having the police officers have the equipment and the training that they need so that they can better respond to a protest that.
I mean, do you worry there could be another January 6th?
I'd be foolish not to think it couldn't happen again. But I will tell you the reason that I hopefully will not lose sleep over this is because we are better prepared even now, and we're going to be better prepared every day. And that's not to say that folks that want to disrupt and create chaos during a demonstration, that they won't think of new tactics or different things as well. But I know that we're doing all the things we need to do to be better prepared. So that something like January 6th would not happen again.
As you know, the House recently formed a select committee to investigate what happened on the 6th. Would you testify if called?
So, I mean, obviously, if I'm called, I will testify. I'm not sure I can offer much. I was not the police chief on January 6th, and frankly, my focus is looking forward. I mean, they want to look at how this happened. I will always be interested in if they can identify some deficiency that we can work on, to make this department better. I'm always interested in that. That's why I've paid so much attention to all the recommendations that have come out of the reports that have already been done, and I'll pay attention to the ones that come out of this investigation. But I have no. It does not benefit. I'm not putting my energy into trying to play the blame game and say, oh, look, this person did that. If I was here then, maybe that would be a different story. But my first day is today. And so I'm looking forward to try and ensure that we've got all the things to adequately protect this complex.
As you mentioned earlier, you are replacing acting Chief Yogananda Pittman. Do you intend to keep her in the command structure?
Absolutely. I think that, first of all, I think Chief Pittman did a really great job when she took over as acting chief. And again, I know there's folks that want to, that make judgments about somebody, on their worst day. Well, none of us should be judged, as a result, just based on one day of our life. Chief Pittman has had a great career. She's smart. She's a good leader. And my hope is that she remains a part of my leadership team.
Even though she got a vote of no confidence.
I get that, and there's a lot of reasons that chiefs get votes of no confidence, and I don't, I don't know all that was involved with that. But what I do know is she is somebody that I think can help me and be a part of my leadership team to get the things accomplished that we need to accomplish.
Obviously, she made history in becoming the first African American, the first woman to lead the department. I guess, what do you say to those who may have wanted to see a person of color or a woman in this role, especially given some of the diversity issues that have plagued this department in the past?
So I'd tell them I get that, and I really do, and I think that I would say that Chief Pittman has a very bright future, in my opinion, and all I can tell you is that what was described to me as what the leadership here, the leadership in Congress was looking for, was someone who's experienced, who has been through these kinds of things before, so my hope, so my thought is that maybe they were looking for somebody different, and in terms of experience, but as I say, I think Chief Pittman did a phenomenal job in the last 6 months as acting chief.
Just a few weeks before you started, we saw the fencing finally come down around the Capitol complex. When do you think it's possible, or do you think it's possible, to reopen the Capitol to visitors at this point beyond the outer grounds?
So I think that's coming. That's not my decision. It'll be a decision made by not only the police board, the Capitol Police Board, but certainly the leaders, the congressional leaders, will have a say in that.
Do you think you have the manpower to do that?
I think we can do it. I think we can do it safely, yes.
You're accountable to the Capitol Police Board, to lawmakers. So at the end of the day, do you feel you're going to have the power to make reforms in this agency?
I would not have taken this job if I didn't think that I was going to be able to do the things that needed to be done to help this agency. And frankly, I don't think it's going to be a struggle. Look, there's always folks that there's always competing priorities, and there's always folks that say, well, I think we ought to do this before we do that. We can have all those discussions, but I think that that everyone within this organization looked at this as an opportunity to make some improvements.
I know one of the big things that came out of the reports is this ability for the chief to be able to call on the National Guard in cases of emergency. There has not been any legislation that has passed to enable you to do that, but without those powers, do you feel hamstrung?
I don't, is a short answer, and it's because we are, even today, we had a discussion among myself and the Sergeant at Arms for the House and Senate. We understand that if there need to be efficiencies, and policy changes with regard to that issue, let's talk about it. So I think there's a willingness on everybody to look at this and see if we can make some adjustments so that we don't have a crisis and somebody saying, "Oh gosh, I can't do anything about it." Nobody wants to see that situation repeated. So we're having the right conversations about that.
And then lastly, where do you want this department to be on January 6, 2022?
I want folks to say, "Oh yeah, we've got confidence in the Capitol Police Department." I want the folks that work here and visit here to feel safe, and I want the men and women of this department to feel like that this department cares about them, and I want them to be as proud of their work and the fact that they're wearing this uniform. I want them to be as proud as I am, about being a part of this organization.
Thanks for listening to the CBS This Morning podcast. If you want to catch the day's top stories in under 20 minutes, be sure to subscribe to CBS This Morning News on the Go on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.